For many years now, this game had been my standard answer to people asking why do you like to play single player games. When people often debate whether video games are art, it seems like this game is always getting reference. For full disclosure, I played the original Bioshock back when I was just 16 years old. At that point, I haven't played that many good games. Like the amount of universally acclaimed games I played can probably all be counted in one hand. So when I finished this game for the first time, it instantly became one of my favourite video games of all time. And it stayed in my top 3 for many years. Fast forward to now, I had far more gaming experiences, and it is with that new appreciation in this medium that I decided to replay this game. So does this game hold up in 2021, or is it overrated? Welcome to this video where I talk about all things video games. In this video I'll be reviewing Bioshock. The original Bioshock was released in 2007 on a PC and Xbox 360. It was met with universal critical acclaim, with many critics citing it as an absolute masterpiece. The game that pushed the medium to new heights in storytelling, gameplay and presentation. Bioshock will continue to make waves even years after its release, with its iconic quotes, phrases and moments. Even for me personally, those moments have continued to start with me for so many years. And I'm glad to report, replaying through the game again, the story and setting remains the highlight of this game. It features a very memorable opening sequence with you crashing down into the sea and approaching a towering lighthouse. You consequently get introduced into the underground dystopian city, Rapture, and the man behind it, the charismatic and idealistic Andrew Ryan. This setup is really well done. I remember being so intrigued by this setting when I first played it. Everything from the slow descension into the sea, to the wide opening cinematic shot of Rapture itself. There's actually two types of storylines getting told as you progress through the game. Of course there's the immediate story beats, which involves the protagonist, you escaping Rapture, but what really stands out to me is the backstory behind the city itself. Rapture is founded by the ideals of objectivism, where citizens of Rapture have complete free will, absolute individual rights, and strong self-interest. In Andrew's own words, in Rapture, the artists will not have to fear the censor, the scientists will not be bound by morality, and the great will not be constrained by the small. And just plain looking and exploring the city, it's obvious to see that at some point, Rapture was a very successful city that was thriving in sectors like technology, science and art. Which really begs the question of how this thriving paradise ended up in the terrible state it is in now. And this basic fundamental question is always at the back of my mind, uncovering and looking at the different locales, the graffitis, the propagandas, the audio logs that are left behind. Honestly, it's so fun to just piece all these clues together to form the inner workings and lore behind Rapture. And this is something I really cherish replaying through the game again, much more compared to the immediate story beats that is happening to our protagonist. Of course, that doesn't mean that the immediate storyline isn't good. It told a story that can only be truly executed in this medium known as video games. And there is still that one big memorable scene that everyone still talks about to this day. But this feeling of mine probably stems from the fact that I already know what's going to happen down the road, so that mystery element was no longer present. Anyway, the reason why Bioshock's story left such a big impact on so many people's mind is because it delves into many mature themes that video games up to that point wasn't really known to be associated with. It's rare to find a game back in the day that has social commentary, meta commentary, political commentary, philosophy, all in a single game. This was once again pretty groundbreaking to me. However, now I've played other video games that touch on similar narrative themes, and I can even argue that those games did a better job conveying the same themes. So in contrast, Bioshock doesn't really feel that special in 2021 anymore. Another reason why the story and writing was so impactful is due to the presentation that accompanies it. The visuals have not aged a bit. Playing through the remastered version, I'm still in awe by its graphics. The standout is definitely the art style of Rapture. The whole of Rapture architectural design is inspired by Art Deco, which was a pretty popular design in the late 1920s and 30s. You can really see the beauty of the city as you slowly explore and uncover each part of Rapture. Of course, this is also a city that has clearly been deteriorating over the years before you arrive, and being situated deep under sea where sunlight can't necessarily reach, the lighting is usually really dark, giving a rather spooky, isolated and claustrophobic atmosphere. The other smaller details featured around Rapture also adds to the vintage feel as well, such as the smaller decoration and fixtures, the illustration featured on everything including the vending machines, or the bright neon lights. The audio side of the presentation is also just simply splendid as well. First off, the voice acting is really well done. Much of the backstory of Rapture are told by audio logs you find along the way, and each of the audio logs have really good voice acting performance. Like, it's hard to just tell a story without the accompanying visuals, but they really did a good job in making sure each audio log hits the mark of delivering ample emotion for you to care, while also giving exposition.
This dump yanking guts out of fish. Fontaine's promising something better. He's like one of us, you know? Like he's worked a day in his life.
The sound design and mixing also deserves a quick shout out. Things like the sound of a big daddy around the corner, the muffling filter over audio logs, or the overly excited public address and advertising, it's all really well done, adding to the immersive nature of the city.
You just need to slow down a bit on the splicing. Before you know it, you'll be as right as rain. Remember, a smart splicer is a...
For the music, I would like to just highlight the licensed music used in this game. More often than not, their inclusion juxtaposes the current situation they are played in really well. And since they are old songs, they have a very classic identity that is so much different from the pop songs we hear today. Combined with the visuals, this game really conveys the classic vintage vibe of the mid-1900s really well. When I play through this game, I feel like I'm transported back to the 1960s and playing something that could have really taken place in the past. This has been a glowing review so far, however the one thing that really dampens my enjoyment of the game is the gameplay. Bioshock is a first-person shooter that also tries to incorporate elements from other genres such as survival horror, adventure and RPG games. While as a first-person shooter, the gunplay feels a bit off. The different weapons available just don't feel that crisp to play. It's like there's no weight and impact when you fire your weapons. Aside from using traditional weapons, in Bioshock you can also equip different plasmas. This plasma grants you special abilities like shooting electricity, shooting fire, freezing enemies from your hand. Well, my first playthrough I really like the ingenuity of these plasmas, and I'll be constantly looking out for new plasma or upgrading existing ones. However, this time round I just didn't really care for it that much. Even though they all have slightly different effects, they kind of just do the same thing in my opinion. And it doesn't help that in Bioshock 1 you can't wield a plasma and a weapon at the same time, so you have to constantly switch out the two, which is quite troublesome. This was subsequently changed in the 2 sequels afterwards. Speaking of the sequels, I ended up reinstalling Bioshock Infinite again, and as soon as I started playing around with the combat, the difference was night and day. The combat just feels so much better than Bioshock 1. Aside from the mechanical feels of the FPS, I think Infinite also benefited from having better level designs where they actually designed the layout with the firefight sequences in mind. It doesn't hurt that Columbia is designed with more open spaces that fit the style of a Battlefield more. Whereas in the close and corridor style nature of Rapture, it feels very hard to make each firefight actually interesting. Much of the other gameplay decision also doesn't feel that good. For example, the vital chambers, which compromise the survival horror aspect of the game. Constantly respawning enemies, which compromise the exploration aspect of the game, which was a big part of my enjoyment this time round. And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention the laborious hacking minigame. All in all, I feel like the gameplay portion of Bioshock aged the worst. While granted, I remember I did enjoy the gameplay a lot on my first playthrough. However, having played other FPS, especially the sequels, returning to Bioshock 1's old combat feels like a chore. For this playthrough, I played the remastered version of Bioshock on a PC. Aside from the marginal upgrades to the visuals, there's also a new museum mode where you get to see the different concept arts, which as a long-time fan is pretty cool. You also get to unlock different parts of a director commentary where you get to hear firsthand from Ken Levine and Sean Robertson about the development of Bioshock itself. To summarize, Bioshock is still an incredible piece of art. With one of the best settings in all of video games, it manages to tell a mature story that covers serious themes like politics, social economics, agency, free will, and it's truly a story that can only be told in the medium of video games. The world of Rapture is brought to life by the amazing presentation with an art style that's not aged at all. The audio design with the licensed music, great voice acting, and audio mixing really makes Rapture super immersive. My only negative is the dated gameplay. Replaying the game again for this review, I found that the combat and gunplay feels very sloppy, and I'm not a fan of the other gameplay system as well. If you have asked my 16-year-old self right after I finished my first playthrough, I would have probably given this game a 10 out of 10. But now as a 23-year-old with so many other gaming experiences under my belt, I have to give Bioshock a 9 out of 10. Despite it not being a 10, I would still 100% recommend this masterpiece to all of you. This is a quintessential game for all gamers, and it's still one of the games that I proudly proclaim to be art. The only reason why I wouldn't recommend this game is if you are too young. As I said before, this game covers many mature concepts and themes that may just go over your head if you don't already know about these concepts to begin with. Anyways, once Bioshock 4 is reviewed and released, you can count on me to review it here on this channel, so if you don't want to miss it, press the subscribe button. Currently I'm playing Dark Souls Remastered, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, so this may be the upcoming reviews on this channel. For other gaming reviews, click this playlist here. So long guys, so long.